Welcome back, everyone. This is your Module 3 introduction video. If you've gotten this far in the class, you are over a quarter of the way through. So, congratulations. And remember that even though this is an asynchronous class, I'm here for you if you need support. So, don't hesitate to reach out. So, in this introduction video, we'll explore chapters 7 and 8 in your textbook. These chapters take us deeper into the early childhood period of development around the ages of 3 to 6. And just like Module 2, our focus will be on the physical, cognitive, and psychosocial growth during what are thought to be the preschool years. So we'll talk about how children grow physically and how they begin to understand themselves as human beings, how they interact with others, and how their thinking and learning evolve during this exciting period of development. This is a time of steady physical growth for kids between the ages of 3 and 6. They will typically gain 2 to 3 inches in height and 4 to 6 pounds in weight each year. Their bodies begin to slim down and they look more proportionate as their body fat decreases and their limbs grow longer. One of the most remarkable changes is in the brain, though. By age 5, a child's brain is 90% of its adult weight. The brain also refines itself. Myeliniation and synaptic pruning are improving the efficiency of the brain signals, which supports better attention spans and coordination. You'll read about this in chapter 7, and I know it can get a little bit heavy if you're not used to reading some of the terms around brain development, but push through because it really is important. In terms of motor skills, you'll notice big gains. Gross motor skills like running, jumping, hopping, and climbing become more refined, and kids are more confident in their movement, and they may start participating in structured play and sports. In terms of fine motor development, it's also taking off as well. Children learn to draw with more control, they use scissors, they button their clothes, and they start to be able to manage their own eating utensils. Many kids can print some letters and tie their shoes by the time that they're 6. Appetite usually slows down compared to toddlerhood, which can sometimes be concerning to caregivers, but this is normal. Kids are also forming food preferences and may be picky eaters. Still, it's important to make sure that they're receiving a balanced diet, as it's key to prevent common issues like iron deficiency or excess sugar intake. In terms of sleep, children need about 10 to 13 hours of sleep a night. Some may still nap in the afternoon, especially younger ones. Establishing bedtime routines can make a big difference in supporting healthy sleep habits. And lastly, injuries are the number one health concern at this stage. And this kind of makes sense, right? As they are able to do more physically, they take more risks and more challenges. So kids tend to be adventurous with these newly acquired gross motor skills, but they don't always recognize danger. So supervision and safety precautions are essential. And don't forget about immunizations. Keeping up with these are critical during this time of development. This age is truly a time of growing independence, and understanding the changes happening in children's bodies and brains can help us better support them in their development. So children in this age range still fall within Jean Piaget's pre-operational stage of development, which we introduced in our last video. Again, this stage is characterized by the use of symbols like language and drawings to represent ideas mentally. You'll notice more pretend play and storytelling during this stage of development, but their thinking is still limited. They still struggle to see things, for example, from another person's perspective. And they tend to only focus on one aspect of a situation at a time. They're just limited in their cognitive thinking, and only with time and experience does that fully develop. They've also not yet mastered some other important cognitive skills, and you'll read about these in your textbook. And I hope you're able to follow particularly Piaget's stages, as you see kind of how the brain fully develops. And there's also several supplemental videos that kind of give you a deeper insight into to Piaget's work. So make sure you take a look at those. During early childhood, attention spans improve, but children are still easily distracted. Their working memory grows, which helps them remember instructions and solve simple problems. They also form what's called an autobiographical memories, which are those long-term memories of their own personal experiences, right? So you can start talking to children about, the vacation they took to the beach, if it was memorable to them. Um, or other important milestones in their lives. And they tend to develop scripts or mental frameworks for their familiar routines, like going to school if they're enrolled in school or getting ready for bed. They recognize the routines and they're able to kind of retell them to you. This really helps organize their memories and helps them predict what comes next in a series of events. One of the biggest cognitive milestones in early childhood is the development of theory of mind. This is the understanding that others have thoughts, beliefs, and feelings different from their own. Around ages 4 and 5, most children begin passing false belief tests, meaning that they can understand that someone else might hold a mistaken belief. This supports the development of empathy, cooperation, and more complex social interactions. Language development in early childhood is explosive. By the age of 6, many children know over 10,000 words. They form longer, more grammatically correct sentences, and they start using plural forms and tenses and questions accurately. They also begin to understand the pragmatics of language and can adjust how they speak based on who they're talking to. For example, they may speak differently to a baby than they do to a parent. Reading aloud, storytelling, and having rich conversations are all essential during this stage of development. As we can already see, early childhood is a time filled with growth in the physical and cognitive domain. At the end of chapter 7, your textbook also discusses other influences on this development. One of the key influences are the home environment and parental involvement. So, access to books, language rich interactions, and healthy routines within the home create an opportunity for cognitive development. In addition, talking, reading, and playing with children helps them build on these skills. But many American families choose to enroll their children in early childhood programs outside of the home. I think one of the last stats that I saw on this was almost 60% of families. And so these preschool or early education programs really provide structure, provide social interactions, and early exposures to academic concepts, sometimes not found in the home environment. And the research is clear here. High quality early education programs have been linked to long term gains in language, literacy, math, readiness, attention, and emotional regulation. Programs like Head Start and Universal Pre K can especially benefit children from under resourced communities. Social interactions are important as well. You'll read more about this in chapter 8. But for now, Vygotsky's sociocultural theory reminds us that children learn best through social interactions and adult scaffolding. Strong early childhood programs are built around this idea. So, more on this later. Let's transition now to psychosocial development. So, Eric Erikson posits that children between the ages of 3 and 6 are typically in a stage of development he calls initiative versus guilt. In this stage, children want to try new things, build a tower, make a game, lead a group. And when parents or caregivers support this exploration, children develop a sense of initiative and purpose. But if children are criticized or discouraged from those activities, they may develop guilt or they become hesitant or overly self-conscious about what they can accomplish. And so it's the adult's role to encourage their efforts and help them feel capable, even when they fail. Children in early childhood begin forming a self concept, their own description of who they are. This includes statements like, I am fast, or I am good at coloring, or I'm a bad boy. Self esteem begins to develop, and it's shaped largely by how adults and peers respond to the children's actions. This is also the stage where gender identity becomes more established. Children learn cultural expectations about gender roles through parents, through the media, and through their peers. And they may show strong preferences for certain types of toys or activities that match their gender identity. And sometimes here they can be very rigid in their gender, in their exploration of their gender, too. Children are learning to identify and manage their emotions at this time, which is an essential skill for healthy development. They begin to understand how others feel and may show early signs of empathy, especially when it's modeled by a parent or a caregiver. With that said, they still struggle with emotional regulation, especially when they're frustrated or when they're tired. Parents and caregivers who model calmness and provide comfort help children build these skills over time. And play is really important here. It's where social development happens for children. It's how children practice cooperation, empathy, problem solving, and creativity. In this chapter, you'll learn about various types of play and the typical stages of play development. And so I'll hop on my soapbox for a moment here. You know, as an early childhood educator, I cannot stress how important the role of play is in the development of young children. Play is indeed the work of children and shouldn't be taken lightly. And then finally, in this chapter, you'll read about parenting and the moral development of young children. Diana Baumrind is known for outlining four parenting styles. Authoritative parenting style, which is characterized by parents who are warm and structured. Authoritarian, a parent who is strict and controlling. A permissive, a parent who can be indulgent. And neglectful, a parent who is disengaged. And so, generally speaking, the authoritative parent is thought to be the most ideal as they tend to balance guidance and freedom. But here's where I want us to be careful, because you may recall in the first video we talked about, and also you read about, that cultural context matters. And so this is one of those examples. Depending on the historical time frame, the lived experience of the families, the goal of the families, as well as the environment, this model may not hold up for all families. For example, if a family is living in a dangerous environment, right, that's not really healthy for children to go out and explore and play, even supervised, an authoritative parenting style may not even be possible. And yet, children still grow up healthy and happy. And so, it's important that I note here that I don't want you to take this as the law, right? That parents are often have struggle with doing the best that they can within their environment. So, just a note there. And then also during this stage, children begin to develop a sense of right and wrong that's shaped by how adults model behavior, set expectations, and respond to their moral choices. They may start to show pro-social behaviors such as helping, sharing, comforting others. And at the same time, they may show aggression as well. Some of that aggression might be instrumental, meaning it's goal driven. They want the toy, and so they take the toy in an aggressive fashion. Or some of it may be reactive and so more emotionally driven. So, the general rule of thumb here is to help children understand rules and consequences and empathy through consistent guidance. And so, taken together, chapter 7 and 8 give us a comprehensive look at early childhood development, from how children think and how they relate emotionally, socially, and physically to others. Physical development during this stage is marked by steady growth, improved motor skills, increasing independence, and so on. Cognitive development in early childhood, symbolic thinking, expanding memory, rapid language changes. And on the psychosocial side, the development of self concept, exploring emotions, cooperation, forming friendships, and so on. And so now I want you to consider the people who influence you the most during this time in your life. Did their encouragement, structure, or expectation shape how you saw yourself or approached new experiences? How did these interactions with family or peers impact your self esteem, emotional regulation, or willingness to take initiative in school and social settings? Think about these early dynamics and how they may still influence your behavior or relationships today. And then another question: were you drawn to storytelling, imaginative play, or creative expression? How did those symbolic activities help you navigate emotions, relationships, or challenges? Reflect on how these early cognitive tools may have influenced the way you make sense of your surroundings today, especially in communication and problem solving. I know that's a lot. Chapters 7 and 8 are chocked full. Again, questions, please reach out. Concerns, please reach out. You just want to say hello, please reach out. I'm here for you. Take care. See you in the next video.